Hi, I'm Michelle Fayman, the Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration.
And I'm Leanne Angerman. I'm the Assistant Director.
Welcome to the 2024 election season. Today we're going to showcase a few of our new items that we're bringing forth, as well as talk about a few questions and concerns that we've had in the past.
I'd like to start with letting you know we're so very excited and very proud. We debuted some of our new training materials last year, and we were granted an award from the United States Election Assistance Commission, a CLERI award, for our product. So we wanted to share that with you. Thank you for being a part of that. And if you're someone of the poll workers who shared some ideas with us or gave us back some feedback, we appreciate it. Thank you. You help make us better and help make this process better. So thank you.
One of the other new items that we have this year is our lapel pin for working at the election. If you worked for us in the primary, you'll have last year's, and then this year's is the nice American Eagles. So we hope you enjoy that. Also, we have some new I voted stickers. Please encourage your poll workers to hand these out to the voters once they've cast their vote. Again, remember just to give it to them and let them apply that themselves. And for our future voters that are coming with their parents in election and witnessing the election experience, we have future voters for them.
Just to go over a few of the new things that we have added, you will still get the poll worker quick guide. These are going to be designed much like the ones from the primary. However, it will say at the bottom of it, revision 9/19/2024. So if you have no date at the bottom, it's from the primary. We have had some laws that were updated, so you're going to make sure that you get the one that is revised. It will say revised 9/19/2024. Just to go over some of the changes to the new manual, on page 5, you will notice that as it has always been required, the inspector needs to notify all of the poll workers and invite them to the setup. Things have looked a little bit different in the manual for that this year. And that if the poll workers are not notified, if all the poll workers are not notified for the setup, they are instructed to notify the Board of Elections via email, as well as if the poll workers do not show up after being properly notified, the inspector needs to notify us of that as well via email. On pages 7 and 8 in the manual, you will find information on the VVPAT. That is the Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. We have been using this in early voting for a few years. We were part of a pilot program for that we were very proud of. It's been used a little bit in the field on election day, but this is the first election where it's required by law, and it will be on every voting system on election day out in the precincts. So you're going to want to make sure to familiarize yourself with that. The voters may have a lot of questions on it. It is designed for the voter to go through their voting process on the machine, and when they are done with that, they will hit verify. It will print their selections in the window of the VVPAT so the voter can observe that, make sure that that is their intent. If it is not, they have the ability to review the ballot, make any changes they would like to change, and verify again to make sure that it is the selections that they want prior to hitting the cast vote button.
What we've been seeing a little bit of right now is when voters get to the paper trail, they're noticing that one of their candidates is missing. And what's happened is they a lot of times will hit straight party and they're really excited and hit the candidate also. And when you select it again, you're now in essence turning off the X button for that candidate. So that's where sometimes there's a little mishap. So just keep that in mind. If someone says, something is not on there, have them go back. But usually that's what's happened.
Moving on page 10, you will see again that the setup for the poll location must be bipartisan. If it is not bipartisan, that is the precinct board, so that is the inspector and the 2 judges, Republican and Democrat. If it's not bipartisan, the voting machines cannot be opened. The other new thing is you will find tamper-evident seals attached to the voting machines that will seal the case up. So when you get these, you're going to, as long as you have a bipartisan board, you're going to cut the seals off. You'll be able to open the machine, turn it on, verify the ballot, make sure that the ballot that you are supposed to have matches your sample ballots, so you'll be ready for voting the next morning. Once that's done, you will have extra seals in your inspector kit. You will reseal the voting case, so it's sealed overnight. You will cut those off the next morning when you have a bipartisan team in. for the setup, and they will return to our facility without seals on them. We will seal them once they get back here. Page 12 is the chute. The chute has now been redefined to be a radius. So rather than being a pathway into the room that the voting machines are in, the chute is now a radius. It's a 50-foot radius from that entrance. We've got signage for you to use for that. Make sure that you mark those chutes well and leave that marking out all day long. On page 20, it's just sort of a re-emphasis on the pre-16. The pre-16 is mandatory. I'm still getting a lot of forms books that come back with a blank pre-16. We have marked on the front of the forms book what forms are mandatory. So make sure that you're completing all of those forms, that everybody has a chance to sign them. The pre-16 is sort of a snapshot of election day. So throughout the day, if you're having any anomalies, you're going to record that on the pre-16 right away so you don't forget it. And then at the end of the day, you will record the total of the people who have checked in on the PollPad versus the people who have signed or voted on the voting machine. So those numbers should match unless you have a legitimate reason that they do not. If you have a certificate of error or anything like that, make sure that's all noted on there. The next new change that we have in there is page 26. That's going to be threats to an election worker. So it also deals with voter intimidation and threats to an election worker. It moves these to a level 6 felony. Quite simply, there's just no tolerance here for anybody that threatens our voters or anybody that threatens our election workers. Your safety is the highest priority that we have.
Okay. Also new this year is our voting instructions. Now these voting instructions will be posted in each voting booth as well as near your sample ballots. And it talks about the voter verifiable paper audit trail, so it gives some good information on there for the voters. Make sure you're posting that so everyone can see it. So inspectors, you will pick up your supplies on the Saturday before election. If for some reason you cannot do that, you can write a letter indicating another precinct board member, now this can be Democrat or Republican, that can come and pick up your supplies. But those are the only individuals that are authorized to pick up your kit. When we said we want to talk about things that we've seen in the past, happens every year. In the forms book, under step 6, it talks about how many people are in line at 6 a.m., at 12:30 in the afternoon, and at 6 p.m. And every year I get people putting 37 voters. And then at 12:30 we'll have 107 voters. It's not how many people you have processed, it is actually how many people are in line at those key points. So it should only be 1 or 2, sometimes it's 0. But that is a common error that we're seeing. So please pay attention to step number 6 in your forms book. Remember that on provisionals and emergency ballots, which we talk about in a whole nother section, but one of the biggest problems we see is when people do provisional ballots and they make it back to us, and our board says yes, they should be counted. One of the biggest problems is that the poll workers have not put both of their sets of initials on here, Democrat and Republican. We have revamped the form, or the card, to kind of really spell it out now, so hopefully this assists. But again, provisionals or emergencies must have 2 sets of initials in order for this card to be good.
A little bit about why we do what we do. We print the 0 tapes in the morning. You're prepared for that. But the reason we do this, and I just want to make sure everybody's clear on it, is that's how we know that we start a clean election. When you print that 0 tape, you're showing that there are no votes on the machine, and you're going to do take a look at that PollPad and make sure that there are no check-ins on the PollPad. That no one signed in prematurely, and that's how we know we are starting off with a clean election and getting through the day to the point that we run tally tapes at the end of the day. The tally tapes at the end of the day prove the vote totals. This is one of our many paper backups. We're very proud to have, I think, 6 paper backups, 7 paper backups by the time we're done at the end of the day, before you even leave the poll location. I truly believe we have one of the most secure elections in the country. So make sure that you're getting those tally tapes, printing all 3 copies. One for the office, one for the Democrats, one for the Republicans. Please do not refuse to print any of those copies for anyone. The pre-16 forms, again, we talked about. This is where you're going to document the incidents, any discrepancies, anything like that. It's a very important form to complete. Make sure that we're getting all of those forms done as we turn it in.
If you are working in a precinct other than your home base, be sure to cast your vote early at one of our 11 early voting sites. Now the times do vary based on the location, but we are also open on the 2 Saturdays prior to the election. We don't want you to miss out on your rights to vote since you're helping others, so be sure to cast your vote early. Also, remember to be kind to each other. It's a very passionate day out there. People are really excited to be casting a vote, and they have difference of opinions. And that's okay. That's what makes our democracy great, is that they have the option to come and let their voices be heard on the voting machine. Leanne and I are of different political parties, but we work very well with each other, because we know that our common goal is that there are fair, secure elections for all. And so follow our example, be kind, just be happy. It's a great day. It's going to be an exciting day. There's going to be a large turnout, and we thank you for everything you do. We couldn't do it without you.
Absolutely. Remember, the poll location is a protected and neutral area. So we're trying to provide a good voter experience for the voter. We think that's the best thing that we can do for them. We're all here for public service, and we want to make sure that we do that. So thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate you. We appreciate all that you are putting together, the time that you're spending in training, and the efforts you're putting in to make this the best election ever. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Leanne Agerman, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. This training video will cover the inspector kit. The first thing you need to know is that the voting machines and all of the ADA equipment will be delivered by professional movers to the polling location prior to Election Day. So when you arrive to set up, that equipment will already be there. The inspector kit is picked up by the inspector on the Saturday before the election. So the first thing the inspector will need to do is verify the precinct number and make sure that you have the correct precinct number for Election Day. Once you get home, you're going to want to verify all of the contents to make sure that you have everything that you need for Election Day. The inspector is charged with running the precinct on Election Day and making sure everything runs smoothly. When you verify the contents of the bag, the first thing you're going to look for is the inspector envelope. The inspector envelope contains the list of the poll workers. You'll have 2 sheets, one for the Democrats and one for the Republicans. You're going to want to make sure that you call all of the poll workers to go with you for a setup, or at least invite them to come with you for the setup. This is not about whether or not you can complete the setup by yourself. This is truly a bipartisan effort, and it's about making sure all the poll workers are comfortable with the setup once the election is ready to start on Tuesday morning. So you'll get your poll worker information out of your inspector envelope. It will also contain your passcodes. So the passcodes for the PollPad and the voting machine will be in this envelope, so you're going to make sure you keep this and you take it back with you on Election Day to the polling location. The next information you will find in your inspector kit are the posting materials. So you will have a sample ballot, you will have voting instructions for the machine, the Indiana Voters Bill of Rights, and your Vote Here posting sign for the front door of the polling location. Please take some tape with you so you can adhere these signs to the doors and the walls. Just please make sure that they are visible to all the voters coming in and they are easily readable. You will also have some training materials. You will have the Election Day Handbook, which has a lot of step-by-step information in it, just some detailed information about how to run the polls, so make sure that that's available to you on Election Day so you can refer back to it. The poll worker training guide, the instructions for the voting machine, all of these materials are ready for you on Election Day. Just make sure that you check the kit for them. You will have the 50-foot rope to set up the chute for the polling location. This is a very important part of each precinct. You're going to want to make sure that this is set up at every precinct. The 50-foot rope starts at the door to the room that the voting machines are in. So if you're in an interior room, that the chute may extend through the hallway, but if you're in a building where the front door opens into the room where the voting machines are, then it will extend outside. So you can tie the end of it to a chair or something else. Just make sure that it's extended 50 feet and clearly marked for the voters and clearly marked for any campaign workers that are working outside of the polling location. You will find 3 sets of cards or 3 cards in your inspector kit. You will have the green start card, the blue voting card for the judges to use with the machines, and the red tally card. The red tally cards do not get used until the end of the day. After 6 p.m., after all of the voters have voted, the tally card is inserted into the machines. You'll have a separate training video on that process, but this is what comes back to the county that is used for us to get all of the tallies from the machines for your election results. You will have your jetpack or MiFi. In some locations, you could have a little bit larger version called a cradle point. Your iPad printer and your iPad. Your iPad will be sealed in a separate envelope, in a white envelope, for you to open once you get to the polling location. You will have your iPad stand with your stylus. It's in 3 pieces, so you'll need to put the stand together as soon as you arrive and make sure that everything is functional and working properly. You will have the inspector book in your kit. This is a book full of all of your forms. So this will have your oath as well as many different forms that you might need throughout election day. There is a list of the form names and the form descriptions on the book, so make sure that you keep this handy throughout the entire day. You will also have a list of registered voters. For the list of registered voters, please remember this is for backup purposes only. You are not to use this instead of signing people in on the PollPad. People need to be signing in on the PollPad, but in the event that someone's not in the PollPad and you can't get a hold of someone in the office, you need to make that your first phone call. But in the event that you're not able to find any help or find someone in a PollPad, you can use this list to refer to find out if someone is registered in that precinct. So please note that the inspector book, as well as the list of registered voters, the covers may be in different colors. We typically change them from election to election, so they may be in any number of colors when you receive them. Please make sure that you take with you to the polling location your meals for the day. It's a long day, so please take plenty of drinks and snacks. Sometimes that is provided for you, sometimes it is not. So please take enough with you to provide for the day. And then if there is something else brought in, then you have it if you would like it, or you can certainly pass for that. Make sure that you have tape so you can secure the posting materials to the walls or to the door. And anything else you might find helpful to get through the very long day of election day. So just have that with you. Verify the contents of your kit. You will also find your provisional ballot bag, which is a red cloth bag that contains the instructions and all the materials for your provisional ballots. This is a sealed bag. So if the seal is not broken, then when we get this kit back, we understand that you have not used provisional ballots throughout the day. If the seal is broken, we know that you have gained entry into the bag and that it indicates that you have probably used provisional ballots on that day. So if that seal is broken, go ahead and leave it open and we'll know to check that kit to see if there are any provisional ballots. You will also find an envelope for emergency ballots. Please remember, emergency ballots are only to be used in the event of a complete loss of power. So if you need to use the emergency envelopes, again, the instructions are on it. The ballots are inside the envelope, and you will be able to access those if you need them. If you do not need them, please leave the envelope sealed so we know that they were not needed. That should be everything that should be in your inspector kit. There should be a few more supplies, but if you're missing any of these essential pieces, please call the office right away so we can make arrangements to get you all of the equipment that you need. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go over the material in your black bag as far as the actual equipment for the voting machines and the iPads. So first, of course, we have the iPad itself. Okay, now normally that'll be in an envelope with a label on it with your precinct and also the iPad number on there. Okay. You have the iPad printer. That has the matching number for the iPad. So if you have multiple iPads and printers, make sure you match them out correctly. The power supply for the iPad printer, we label iPad printer. And it's 2 parts, 3-prong, goes together one way. And also it should be plugged in the back of the printer here. If not, the square part goes up, and it's also a 3-prong, so make sure you got it the right way. And then there's the on-off on the side. Okay, if it's plugged in, you should have a green light. Okay, now we have the hotspots and cradle point. We have one or the other generally. Hotspot will be either in a black case like this or a white one, small box. Okay, cradle point's a bit larger. It's for multiple precincts, or if you have bad reception in your area. And it's got antennas, but there's a little instruction sheet inside, so you can see how to put it together. We also have the stand for the iPads in there. Okay, you've got the base, and what we call the stem. Stem just goes into the base, slides in. Okay, we've got the iPad holder itself. There's these 2 yellow buttons on the side. Just squeeze in, put it in, make sure it snaps in place. Okay, you can tilt it, put the iPad in, just make sure the camera matches the little hole there. And then you have the ID tray for person's photo ID. It slides in on the side. Okay. So now we also have the Infinity printer. Okay, it's got the data cable which plugs into the back of the machine. Okay, you have to plug this printer into the voting machine. And that power supply, which we also label. Okay, it plugs into the back here. And when it's powered on, you have a green light in the front. There should be a green light on the top or online. A little power button on the side, make sure that's to the back, that's on. If this light on top is red, you just hit this button, it turns green. Okay, so then we've got the double talk and the headphones. Now this is for visually impaired. The key with this is you want to plug it into the voting machine before you put in the vote card. Okay, you plug it in, it'll say double talk ready. You plug in the headphones, because of course you don't want other people to hear what the person's voting. The other thing is with it though, the person that's voting will have to press each button twice. The first time, it tells them what is in that area. For example, John Smith for president not selected. They hit the button again, it'll say John Smith for president selected. Okay, they have to go through all the pages that way. Okay. Now we have the rope for your chute. Okay, that's generally from the entrance of your polling location out 50 feet. You have the stylus with the stickers. Okay, they should be in a baggie together. You have the power strips. We're hoping to give everyone 3 this election, so you have plenty of power. If you have multiple printers, you might have 4. Okay. We have the extenders for your handicap voting machine. Now, generally that machine has a handicap sticker on it or a tag, and it's to extend the front legs so a wheelchair can access the voting machine. Now, sometimes the chair is still too big or wide, so then you can take the machine out of the case and set it in their lap. Okay. Got extra rolls of paper for your printers. The rolls should be full in the printers already, but just in case, we have some extra rolls in case of an emergency. Okay, now we'll go through the ADA real quick. You might have a sign like this, plastic. So there's a little cap on the base if you want to fill it with water, or if you got a little rock, put some weight on it. Okay, to designate handicap parking spots. We also might provide a cone for curbside parking for handicap. Everyone will have one of these route of travel signs for their location. Okay, this is designate the handicap parking or the handicap entrance that's closest to your room, especially large areas like churches and schools. If you have a step or two to your location, put the bag down. We'll have what we call a suitcase ramp. Okay, it folds up. If you have a couple inch lip, we'll have a smaller ramp provided for you. Okay. And that concludes this segment.
Welcome to the Microvote Infinity VVPAT voting system. In this video, we will instruct you how to set up the voting system, how to vote, and how to close or tally the system. Roll the voting booth into position where it will be used. Place the booth on its long side with the handle facing up. With assistance, place the booth on a table for easier access. Undo the Velcro straps and pull each leg out. Rotate each leg clockwise until it is locked in place. With assistance, stand up the booth. Clip the security seal and open the lid. Let's now define the components within the booth. Voting machine, VVPAT printer, power cord reel, printer and ADA port, privacy curtains. The internal components are already connected. To connect to power, feed the single cord through the back of the booth and plug it in. After the power cord is plugged in, the VVPAT will automatically turn on. Verify the VVPAT has power by confirming the green and orange lights on the front of the VVPAT are visible. To turn the voting machine on, flip the switch on the back of the machine. To set up the privacy curtains, remove the curtains from the lid, insert them into the orange brackets, pushing firmly to make sure they are secure. Now that the voting machine and VVPAT are set up, we are ready to go through the steps to start the voting machine for use. With no card inserted, push the red Cast Vote button. This can also be done throughout the day to verify the number of votes recorded. The screen will go dark after a few seconds. To bring the screen back, just hit the red Cast Vote button again. Verify the mode at the top of the machine says Locked. This confirms the voting machine has been programmed for the election, but hasn't yet been started for use in the election. Verify the county name, the election date and time, and that the precinct name is correct. If the machine is programmed with more than one precinct, the precinct will say multiple. Verify the number of votes recorded at the bottom of the screen is 0. Verify the panel number matches the tag for the booth. If county procedures require, verify that the protective count number matches the number in the paperwork provided. If any of this information displayed on the screen is incorrect, contact election headquarters for the next steps. Locate the Infinity envelope among your election materials and remove the green start card. Insert the start card as shown. Enter the security code provided in your election paperwork and hit Done. Locate the zero-proof tally tape printer in the precinct kit bag. Connect the cable from the zero-proof tally tape printer to the printer and ADA port located at the front of the booth. Now push the button on the voting machine next to Print Zero Proof. At this point, in order to ensure that the VVPAT is correctly connected to the voting machine, the first thing to print is a header on the VVPAT itself. Inspect the VVPAT to ensure that a header did print. Then, on the voting machine, push the button next to Yes to acknowledge that the VVPAT header printed. Now the Zero Proof report will start to print on the Zero Proof printer. Follow county procedures regarding how many to print and who signs the Zero Proof printout. To activate the voting machine, press the button next to Start Election. On the next screen, push the button next to Start. Confirm at the top of the screen that the mode is now Voting Enabled. Remove the start card from the machine and unplug the Zero Proof tally tape printer. Repeat the process on all of the machines at the polling location. Return the Zero Proof tally tape printer to the precinct bag and return the green start card to the Infinity envelope. The next section of the video will instruct you how to activate the voting machine for each voter and explain the voting process. Upon entering the booth to activate the voting machine for a voter, the poll worker should first ensure that the prior voter completed casting their ballot by confirming that the screen is dark, the red cast vote lights are not lit, and there is no ballot visible in the VVPAT viewing window. If any of these conditions exist, redirect the voter to a different machine and inform the head poll worker at the polling location. Activating voting machines for voters on Election Day requires the blue vote card. For use in early voting, you may be using a gray card. Please refer to your written instructions for that process. For Election Day, locate the blue vote cards in the Infinity envelope. Any vote card can work on any voting machine. Insert the vote card into the machine. If there is only one ballot style, or if the vote card has been encoded by an electronic poll book, then the message displayed is "Remove vote card. Vote card must be removed to proceed voting." In this case, follow the instructions. If there are multiple types of ballots on the voting machine and the vote card has not been encoded, then there will be selections to make, such as precinct or party, prior to removing the vote card. Once all the proper selections have been made to activate the correct ballot for the voter, then the message will appear to remove the vote card. The poll worker should then confirm that a header printed on the VVPAT printer to ensure proper functionality of the VVPAT. At the top left of the first page of the ballot, the poll worker should confirm that the correct ballot has been activated for the voter. The poll worker should provide the voter with basic instructions on how to make selections, reviewing the paper record on the VVPAT, and pressing the red cast vote button to cast their ballot. We will now explain how a voter makes selections and casts their ballot. On the screen, the title of the office will appear in a header above the candidates. The vote limit for that office will also appear in the header. To make selections, voters simply push the button next to the candidate they wish to select. To make a different selection, the voter would push the button next to the selected candidate to deselect them. Making selections for an office will also update the vote limit message in the office header. Voters move to the next page of the ballot by selecting Next Page in the bottom right location. When the voter reaches the last page of the ballot, the bottom right button now says Verify Vote. Now, or at any other time, the voter can press the bottom left button to review and/or change their selections. After they have made all their selections, they press the bottom right button next to Verify Vote. Once Verify Vote has been selected, the VVPAT will print the office title and candidates they selected for them to review. If there is more than one page of paper selections, they select Approve and the next page of selection prints. Once they have reached the last page of paper selections, the red cast vote lights are lit and they press the red cast vote button to cast their ballot. The voter should then confirm that their printed selections scroll up and out of view and their ballot has now been cast. Any voting machine can be equipped for voters with visual impairments. To do so, locate the double talk speech device in the precinct kit bag. Before the vote card is inserted, connect this device to the printer and the ADA port towards the front of the booth. You may offer the voter the use of the county supplied headphones, or they may use their own. Now activate the voting machine with the vote card like you do for all voters. Guide the voter to the top left button of the voting machine. When they are ready, the voter presses this button to receive audible instructions on how to vote. When the voter is finished voting, unplug the double talk speech device and the voting machine will return to normal operation for the next voter.
This video is going over the encoders for any combined precincts, which are precincts that have multiple precincts on their voting machines. So, first thing you want to do is plug in the encoder into the side where the power plugs into the iPad. Now, throughout the day, you will need power because the encoder does use more. You'll have to use these cords we provide because the encoder does not use Apple for its power. You will still have to use the Apple plug from your box for the USB side. And then you just plug it into the bottom. Make sure to gently plug it in and get it in right. Okay? Now, you'll bring up your PollPad app, hit get started, and you have to put in your password. Once you put in your password, you'll see you have the scan barcode and manual entry. So, just like normal, hit scan barcode, put their ID in. Want to make sure there's no glare on the license. Okay, select that voter. Address unchanged. If it's unchanged, make sure they have the correct address again. Hit accept. The voter will sign in. Done signing. Compare signatures, again shows the information. Hit submit. Now it asks for the vote card to encode it. So you'll have your vote cards. To encode it, you will turn it to where the metal contact is facing you. Gently put it into the slot on the side. You'll see it turn blue and acknowledge the card. Then you'll hit create card at the top. You'll create the card, print the receipt, and you'll see that person is checked in. So you want to keep the card and receipt together for that voter so the judge can then put them into the voting machine. When the judge puts them in the voting machine, put the vote card in with the blue facing you into the voting machine. Wait till the machine acknowledges it. Then take the vote card out and the ballot will come up for the voter. And it's the same with manual entry. You'll find person, last name in the first box, first name in the last box. Search. Select the voter. Make sure their information matches their license. Address unchanged. Everything matches, they agree. Hit accept. They'll sign in. Done signing. Compare signature. Information is the same. Hit submit. Again, asks you to create the card. So you have your blue vote card. Metal part facing you. Gently into the side. Give it a second or two to acknowledge the card. Again, blue there, precinct there. Hit create card. Says that person is checked in. Take the receipt, remove the card, and head to the voting machine. Now, in case the card does not encode correctly, we have what we're going to call a blank MasterCard, and we'll have on here, do not encode this card. Do not put this card in the encoder. This is for manual entry only. Open the envelope, take out that vote card, you'll insert into the voting machine, and you'll have to manually select the precinct for that voter. Once you've selected the precinct, then you'll take the vote card out and the voter can vote. Then put this card immediately back into this envelope, because again, it's not to be used unless you have to use manual entry on the voting machine. Otherwise, you use the encoder throughout the day as normal.
Hi, I'm Michelle Feynman, and I'm the director of the Lake County Board of Election and Registration. And in this segment, we're going to be going over the posting materials that are in your kit. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Voters' Bill of Rights. And this informs the voters of their rights, and in regards to maybe doing a fail-safe voting procedure, in regards to doing a provisional ballot, your photo identification, and how to get in contact with someone if you feel your voting rights have been disenfranchised. Also in here is we have a sample of what the voting machine would look like. With that, we also have the sample ballot. Now this will match with your voting machine, and it needs to match identical. You will have 3 sets of these. Post them throughout the polling place. The idea here is so that voters know exactly who and what is on the ballot prior to getting to the voting machine, so they know who they're voting for. We also have the photo identification, and that talks about the 4 points that the voter is going to need on their ID when they present it to the clerk, as well as a map of the voting district. Next, we're going to talk about the shoot area. Also included in the kit is a 50-foot rope. That is to be stretched out at every single polling place, and it starts at the entrance to your voting room. So in some instances, this will be outside. Within this 50-foot shoot area, there is no electioneering or campaigning. It is a good idea to use a chair or a railing to tie the rope to, and so that people can get in line as they enter to the polling place. If there is a line at 6 p.m., your judge will go to the end of the line, and every person that is in line is still entitled to vote.
Please make sure you post your Vote Here sign on the exterior of the building for the voters to see as they approach. You will want to come out at the beginning of the poll day at 6 a.m. and announce the polls open, and again at 6 p.m. to announce the polls closing.
Hi, my name is Joel Rodriguez. I am the Registration Administrator for the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. Today I'm going to be showing you the PollPad assembly for the clerks on Election Day. In your black bag, you will have your iPad, which will be in a white envelope, which will not only have precinct number as well as the iPad number. You then tear it off, and you will then have your iPad ready. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a close-up view in how we set up our station for the clerks on Election Day. Again, you're going to have the assemblies, which will be detached. You're going to attach your base with your stem, kind of place it in there, groove it down, place it down like that. You have these 2 buttons on the sides. You're going to push that, and also making sure that the hole for your camera is facing on the upper left corner. Normally what I do is I kind of tilt it to a 90-degree angle so my iPad doesn't fall to the floor. I then will unpack the iPad from the envelope. I will open it. And while I'm opening this, make sure that your envelope number matches your printer on your iPad, and just to make sure that everything is matching so you know you got the right iPad that's going to work with your printer. Next I would do is I'll grab the iPad. I have the camera there. Here's my hole for the camera. I'm going to place it gently, and I'm going to snap all 4 corners. Then I'm going to tilt it back to me, grab my ID tray, and I'm going to slide it right in, and there you go. Next, we have the MiFi or Jetpack. There is a power button at the top. If you hold the button for 3 seconds, you will see the MiFi pop up. That's indicating that the MiFi is powering on. Next, you're going to look at, on the upper left and right hand corners, you have your signal strength as well as your battery power life. So on the signal strength, we want at least 2 bars on your MiFi in order to get a great signal for Election Day. So if you walk it around the room, and if you're near a window, if you get that 2 bars, just kind of place it there and pretty much leave it there for the rest of the election. You should be fine. Precincts that need a stronger signal will receive a cradle point instead of a MiFi. And to assemble a cradle point, they do come with 4 paddles. If you place your paddle and twist, and if it doesn't fit, it's because it's on the wrong side. So make sure that your paddles do fit the groove, and you place it upwards. And I'll go ahead and twist this one here for you. There we go. You plug it in, and you're ready to go. Next, we have our printer. On the top of the iPad printer, you have a number which should match your iPad number at the front. Okay? The first thing you want to do is make sure that the connection of the power cables are connected, including the iPad printer. There is a second cable which needs to connect to the box and then along to your outlet. Once you've done that, you will then power on your printer. You'll see a green indicator light to show that the printer is powered on. Okay, so you have all 3 of your assemblies in front for the clerk on election day. The first item you're going to turn on is going to be your MiFi or Jetpack. The next thing you want to turn on is going to be your iPad printer. And once you've done these 2, you then can go to your PollPad, and on the upper left-hand side, there's a little button there. Just hold that button until you see the Apple logo, and that's indicating that the iPad is powering on as well. Okay, so once you get to this screen here, you'll notice there's a P in the center of the iPad on the bottom portion there. Just go ahead and click on it. It's going to give you all the information you need about your precinct as well as election day. Here it says Lake County 11/3/2020. It'll have your precinct location on there as well. On the upper right hand corner, it'll have your printer icon as well as your Wi-Fi icon. Both icons, if you follow the steps earlier, both icons should be green. Go ahead and click Get Started. Republican sign-in, Democratic sign-in. And once you're in the main menu here, this is the menu for election day. If you notice, there's two parts to this. You have your scan barcode as well as your manual entry. On the scan barcode, it's really simple. You go ahead and you ask for the voter's driver's license or state ID. And what you will be scanning is the back portion of their driver's license or state ID. You place it on the ID tray. You go ahead and hit scan the barcode. Make sure there's no glare on the barcode. The name will pop up. You go ahead and click that. Again, you ask the voter whether his address has changed or unchanged. In this case, the address has not changed. You go ahead and click address unchanged. There's a separate video if the voter's in the wrong precinct and he's wanting to vote in that precinct. There's a provisional button here where we do have a separate video that sort of explains that. And so definitely watch that video as well as it relates to provisional voting. Once that's correct, the voter will then sign, and you get to the next screen here. On this screen would have 2 signatures that you can verify, make sure that the signatures are correct. Click submit. It would then print out a receipt, which on the receipt would actually have the voter's precinct as well. When you get to the machine, you can then process the voter accordingly. On the manual side, you click manual entry. You enter the voter by adding 3 letters of their last name, 3 letters of their first name, and as soon as you locate, go ahead and click on it. Again, you verify with the voter, has the address changed or unchanged. If they say that it has unchanged, You then go to the next screen, click accept. The voter then will sign. Once they complete that, you have the signature verification page. And again, once you click submit, your receipt will then pop up where you can actually give that to the judge who takes the voter to the voting machine. So if a voter has moved and would like to vote at that precinct one last time, there's two ways again of pulling up the voter. I'm going to use a manual entry. And let's just say we pulled up the voter. You read the address to the voter states that he has moved. You then go back and you pull the voter to the side and have them fill out VRG 412. They will then come back in line. You then pull the voter back. You'll click address change. Please verify the form was completed before processing. In this case, the voter did complete the form, so you click continue. Click accept. The voter will then sign. You click done signing, verification of signature page. You then click submit, and the voter can now vote at the machine. Say, for example, the voter's in the wrong precinct and he needs to know what precinct he needs to go to vote. You can do the manual entry or scan his driver's license or state ID. In this case, I'm going to use the manual entry. And I can scroll up or down, just try to locate that voter. And of course, if this is a voter here, I let the voter know the location of where he needs to be. There's the precinct information as well. If you need to pull a piece of paper, just click print test. You can actually write that precinct as well as the name of the location where he needs to be.
Hi, today we're talking about the forms book, and this is a very important aspect of the voting process. So the very first thing on our forms book is it is going to list you the quantity of how many are in your forms book, the name of it, and then the form number. All forms will stay inside this forms book throughout the entire day, and you will return the book completely intact. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is the PRE1, which is the oath of your poll workers. And if you're anything like me, to make things go a little bit smoother, I love my little tabs. This can be with Post-it notes, anything you want to use, but it does make it easier for finding your actual forms. So again, going back to the oath. This is going to be where we swear in all of our poll workers, the inspector, the judges, and the clerks. Also, if you have to replace anyone throughout the day, you will come back and do a new oath for your replacement worker. After that, we have the ballot agreement. The ballot agreement states that our voting machine matches our sample ballot and that everything is exactly the same. After that, we have the electronic poll book. It's a certification showing that when we opened the poll books, there was no one registered on there. Up here at the top, next page, it'll say what time we opened and closed our voting machine in our polling place. So at 6 a.m. we should be opening, and at 6 p.m. we should be closing. Down here in step 6, this is where everybody always makes a mistake. This is asking you how many people are in line at 6 a.m., 12:30, and 6 p.m. That is just a quick little number, 3 people in line. What I always get is 57, 75. That's how many people have voted. This one here, just how many people are in line. Small numbers. Next is the PRE3, which is an affidavit of assistance. A voter can bring in someone of their choice to assist them. That can be anyone other than their employer or a member or an agent of their union. So they can bring in their child, spouse, parent, friend, whomever, but that voter must have themselves and the assister sign this in advance. Now, if they want someone, they didn't bring someone, then they can have both judges assist them, and then both judges will sign off that they assisted the voter. This is to be done prior to the entry into the voting machine. Okay. Next is the PRE5. This is a replacement. If a voter comes in and on your iPad it shows that they've already received an absentee ballot, and the voter says, I never received it. If that's the case, they are going to fill out the PRE5, and that replaces their absentee ballot, and they would be entitled to vote on the voting machine. Now, if a voter brings in their forfeited ballot, you can accept it. They don't need to fill out the form. It is only if they are not bringing one in with them. Never received it. PRE5. The PRE8 is a replacement worker. Sometimes throughout the day you may have to disqualify a poll worker, or two, there may be an emergency and your poll worker has to leave. Reasons why we would have to reject someone would be maybe as they're taking their oath of office they realize I am related to a candidate and cannot serve. So if that's the case, we will ask the first available voter if they would like to serve, and if they are qualified, they will fill out the replacement form. Now, once they do this, make sure you go back to your oath, have them sign the oath, and then also update the pay claim. And on the pay claim, you will prorate their pay, so you're just going to put in the time they got there, and we'll take it from there. The ABS, the pre-earning 9. This is if a voter is in the voting machine and they accidentally walk away without hitting the cast vote. Your first thing is going to call that voter back and say, excuse me, can you come back and just hit your cast vote on the voting machine? If by chance they got away before you were able to catch them, then both of the judges will go inside the voting machine and hit the cast vote button for the voter. Do not touch any other buttons. You will just hit the cast vote button. And then this form will be filled out showing that you did that. Okay, moving on. PRE 10 is for if you were to use emergency ballots. Emergency ballots are only used in the event of total machine failure. If you have 4 voting machines and one goes down, you keep using the other 3. Now, if you had 4 and there was a major power outage and you couldn't use any of the voting machine, then you're going to go to the emergencies. You will fill out this form. Once you fill out this form, on the front of your number 1 envelope, you will also check the box saying we used emergency ballots. Be sure to call the election board prior to using them for us to give you an update on it and authorize it for you. Okay. Pre-16. This is mandatory. And so what this form is going to do is at the end of the day, you are going to match up how many votes you had on your voting machine and how many people signed in on your iPad. And on the back of the form here, there's like a little schedule. So you can put in all your voting machines, your iPads, and so forth, and add them up. Now, it's also going to ask you if there were any differences. Maybe I had 151 people sign in, but I had 152 on the voting machine. I'm off by 1. Why is that? It could be that we couldn't find a name in the PollPad. And if that's the case, you're going to write it in over here what the discrepancy was. They found a voter, we had comboed them up, and that's why they went in our PollPad. Sometimes it could be one of the other forms we're going to hit, which is, I'm going to get to in a second. Sometimes a voter was in line, signed in, had an emergency, and had to leave. If that's the case, document it so we know why you are off in your count. Very, very important. And if you keep up with this throughout the day, you won't have any problems because you'll always know what that issue was where there was an anomaly. Okay. The next one is the PRE 18. That is, guess what? You don't need it because it's for a municipal election. We just threw it in accidentally, so don't worry about that one. Okay, PRE 19. This is another spot where we could have that anomaly. So the only people that are allowed to leave and come back to your polling place, like once they signed in, are public safety officers, firemen, policemen, first responders. If all of a sudden they're in line waiting to use the voting machine and they get a call and they have to get dispatched, they have to take off and go save someone maybe. So in that case, you're going to document that those voters, first responders, are eligible to come back and then cast their vote. So they're the only ones, but you need to fill this out so you know who left and again, why your numbers are off. Next is the VRG 412, and this is going to be probably one of your most used forms. This is for when a voter signs in on the PollPad and you ask them to confirm their address and they go, oops, I'm no longer at that address. You're going to pull out this form. This is used if someone moves within Indiana within 30 days before the election. It's also used if someone moves regardless of time, still within Lake County and the congressional district. It's also used if someone got canceled from their voter registration record, but they're still at the same address. They will fill out this form and then they're eligible to vote on the voting machine. Now the thing here is they're going back to their original precinct where they were registered to vote. Next is the VRG 11. A voter comes in, says, I registered to vote, and my name is not in the poll list. And we can't find them here at the government center. You call us up and we still can't find them. We want to make sure that they're set and ready for the next election. So we're going to have them fill out the VRG 11. In some cases, they may be doing a provisional ballot also, and that'll come into another section that we're going to talk about that on though. Okay, next thing. Next is the VRG 14, and this is a request to cancel. Every now and then we'll get a parent or family member that comes in and says, my son or daughter keeps getting mail about the voting, but they haven't lived here in 5 years or so. They've moved away to another state. Offer to give them one of these forms and they can take it home, get it to their son or daughter, and then we will gladly cancel them off our records. And last but not least is the VRG 15. And this is a presidential only voting. So this is if someone moved, formerly resided in Indiana, lost their residency less than 30 days before the presidential election, normally qualified to vote. So if they moved within 30 days before the election, out of state, and they want to come back, they get to vote for president only. Now, on the voting machine, there is no presidential only ballot, so you will give them a provisional ballot, and they will vote in just the presidential race. And that's the end of our forms book. Remember to keep everything completely intact. If you have any questions or concerns, give us a call.
Hi, my name is Leanne Ankerman and I'm the Assistant Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. This training video will cover the audit procedure and credentials. There are a few of our audit forms in the inspector book, which comes in the inspector kit, so you'll know where to find those when the time comes. The forms are in place for your protection. Proper documentation of what has happened throughout the day on election day will help you if you do get called in front of the Board of Elections, or perhaps help you not to be able to be called in front of the Board of Elections if there are any abnormalities. So my first suggestion is document, document, document. The first and last form that you will be using on election day is the pre-1. The pre-1 form is 5 pages, including 6 steps. And part of that, you will be documenting the number of people who are in line. So make sure that you're doing that at 6 o'clock a.m., you're doing it at 12:30 p.m., and 6 o'clock p.m. So that is the first form that we'll use. We also have the pre-16. The pre-16 is a 2-page form, and this documents the number count between the iPad and the voting machines. Now with rare exception, those two numbers should be the same all day long. You could have a situation where they are acceptably off. For instance, if a first responder comes in to the polling location and signs in on the PollPad, then needs to leave to take an emergency call, they are permitted to leave after they have signed in and return to vote on the voting machine, so your numbers would be off temporarily. Please remember the first responders are the only ones who are allowed to sign in on the iPad and then leave and be permitted to return and vote on the voting machine. So throughout the day, you'll be documenting the number of votes that you have on the PollPad and the number of votes that you have on the voting machines. Please remember, if you have more than one PollPad or more than one voting machine, that you will be adding those totals together. And throughout the day, the numbers should be increasing and it's an accumulative total. If you have any questions or any problems, you have someone that comes in to the polling location you can't find on the PollPad, immediately call the office. We have to make sure that we don't have anybody voting in that precinct, especially on the machines, that is not a registered and qualified voter in that precinct. So make sure that you're documenting that throughout the day. There are plenty of spaces. If there are any abnormalities, there are spaces just to document and write down what has happened. Extra documentation is good. That helps us as we do the audit procedure after the election to be able to determine what has happened. So we do run the numbers for every iPad and voting machine in the county. So we know exactly what the two numbers are for every precinct, and although for the most part those numbers are the same, there have from time to time been an abnormality. So let's just make sure that through that documentation and through just diligent hard work that we're not having our numbers be off at all. The next form that we have is the pre-9. The pre-9 is if someone comes in to vote, they sign in on the PollPad, they proceed to the voting machine, and they leave without hitting the cast vote button. In that instance, both judges, meaning both a Republican and a Democrat, will attempt to locate the person to have them return and hit that cast vote button. If the person is already gone and that's not possible, you complete the pre-9 form and both judges will hit the cast vote button together. Make sure that that is a bipartisan effort anytime you need to enter a voting booth without the voter being present or even with the voter being present. We also have the pre-3 form. The pre-3 form is the affidavit of assistance. This is someone who is allowed with the voter to assist them. There are some exceptions. A boss or a union representative is not allowed to assist. If the person does not have anyone to assist them and they request assistance, both judges may complete the form and provide the assistance needed. So the security of the polls involves who's allowed inside. And there are some people who are allowed inside the polls beyond the precinct board workers, and they would all have credentials. So no one is allowed in the polls without credentials beyond the workers who also do have credentials. So if a precinct committeeman wants to come in, even a chairman wants to come in, not without proper credentials, you need to check and make sure they have credentials. There are basically two types. So we have credentials that are one full sheet. Our mechanics, our deputy election commissioners, there are a few others that have these full sheet credentials. When they come in, they will display them to you. They will not give you a copy. They are not provided copies to hand over, but just so you're aware, you examine them, make sure that they're proper credentials, check for the date, and then allow them to do whatever business they need to do while they are there. The other type of credentials is a two-part form. So you have a top and a bottom section. They will both be filled out. If someone comes in with one of these forms, likely they will have one for each precinct. So they will keep the top, they will give you the bottom. That will go into the inspector kit. You'll return that with your supplies. But make sure that if they come in, they do have proper credentials. So anyone without credentials is not allowed in the precinct. The media will also have a two-part credential form. We typically get calls each year for photography about the media coming in and taking pictures. The media watchers may photograph the proceedings, but not if the voter objects, and they may not show how anyone voted. Now they are pretty aware of this, but just in case you have any issues, just understand they may photograph the proceedings, they can't show how they voted, and not if a voter objects. Now on the credentials between Republicans, Democrats, media, and different types of credentials, they will be different colors. So you will see kind of a rainbow of colors for each election that will be different. So that is a summary of some of the forms that we use for the audit procedures and credentialing to maintain security in the polls. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Fayman, and I'm the Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. And in this series, we're going to be talking about miscellaneous items in your kit. So one of those is going to be a list of your workers. Inside this envelope will contain all your workers for Election Day. Please call them in advance and ask them to meet you on Monday for setup of your voting machines, and also let them know what time you would like them to appear on Tuesday. Please let them know to bring a lunch or something to sustain them throughout the day. You can order food, but keep in mind the delivery individual cannot enter the polling place. In regards to payment, you will receive a separate sheet of paper that will tell you the date of when the checks will be sent out. On this sheet, we must have each of your workers complete name, address, city, state, and zip, They will mark if they have attended a training session, or in this case, watched a virtual one. They must also sign and provide us their social security number. As inspector, you will sign in a few spots. You'll sign as a worker. You will also attest to that these individuals worked throughout the day. It is important also to list on the front side the polling place so that way we can pay them. On the back side of the claim, there is one additional spot that the inspector must fill out, listing their name and address. Other items that could come up on election day is you may be in what we call a mega precinct or a split precinct. And what that means, in a mega, it means that under one roof, voters will still sign in under their own precinct, but then can go to any voting machine and cast a ballot. Their individual precinct will still be listed on there. And you will know that you are in one when you activate your voting machine and you see a number of precincts. In this case, the voter would still sign in at the clerk's table. They would be given a receipt. And on the receipt, it spells out what precinct they are in. What I like to do is have a highlighter with me. When the voter gives this to me at the voting booth, I would highlight the precinct when I select it, and that makes sure I'm selecting the correct precinct. This is also used in split precincts, whereas in one precinct, they may have a split district, meaning there are maybe 2 school board districts in there. And in that case, they would have 2 separate ballots, so it is imperative that they get their correct ballot. Please use the highlighter. The next thing we're going to discuss is identification. And this is a book that the state elections put out, and in section 3 it talks about photo identifications if you'd like to read up on it more. But in this case, there are 4 things that we are looking for on a photo identification. 1, that it has the voter's picture on it, and it should look like me. Keep in mind I may change my hair color from season to season. The name must conform with what is on the iPad. I said conform and not necessarily match. I could be listed as Michelle Feynman, but I might be listed as Shelley Feynman. I could be Michelle Renee Feynman. Any version of that must be conforming. It also has to be issued by the state of Indiana or the U.S. government, so in this case a passport would also be sufficient. And it must have an expiration date on it. The expiration is going to be no later than the last general election, which in this case will go back to 2018 general election. May not be sufficient for me to be driving on the street, but it's good enough for voting purposes. Other types of IDs that people may bring in that are not good. My work ID badge would not be sufficient. It has my picture and it has my name, but it is not issued by the state of Indiana and it does not have an expiration date on it. So again, those 4 points are what we're looking for in regards to photo identification and are listed in the manual. Fail-safe is going to be the last thing I'm going to talk about. And fail-safe is that we want people who should be able to vote to cast a vote, even if a mistake has been made. So a fail-safe, if a voter shows up and says, my name should be in the book, it's not here, you could have them do a provisional ballot, and that will allow them to cast a vote on a paper ballot, and then the election board will search it out after the fact. It could also mean it's a certificate of error. We may have father and son with the same exact name, and we may have comboed them up. So if you call the office, we may find it, and then in that case we would issue a certificate of error, and then you would allow that voter to vote. In that instance, also keep in mind to watch your audit numbers because they would not have been listed in the book. So I think they talk about that more in when she's talking about the audit section. So just keep that in mind. But we want to allow voters who should have the right to cast a vote. So a lot of times you're going to call us. If you can't get a hold of us, use the provisional ballot and allow them to vote. Also, if someone didn't bring their photo ID, doesn't mean they can't vote. It just means they're going to vote on a different method, being the provisional ballot. And then they can bring this out to us at a later date. And the very last thing is, we like to provide stickers for individuals showing that they have voted, and so that way it encourages more people to come out and vote. Please never attach this to a voter. We do not want any inappropriate touching. Simply give them the sticker, ask them to wear it proudly on election day, and encourage their friends to come out and vote. Thank you for attending our session.
I'm Leanne Ingerman, Assistant Director for the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration, and today we're going to be going over provisional ballots. Hi, we're just going to go over a few notes for provisional ballots. Everything that you need to do a provisional ballot is held within the red provisional bag. Provisional ballots are the fail-safe. This is what we use to resolve issues at the polling location and try to remove confrontation at the polling location. Whenever you need to do a provisional ballot, the first thing you're going to do is call the office. You're going to call the Lake County Board of Elections office in Crown Point at 219-755-3795 and talk to the staff. They may be able to resolve some of your issues just over the phone. So the most common reasons that we have to do a provisional ballot are the person is not found in the PollPad and it was not able to be resolved by staff over the phone. The second reason is that the voter was unable to provide identification or a driver's license, in which case they do have 10 days to provide that to the office for their provisional ballot to be able to be counted. Lastly, the most common reason that we have is that the voter is not a U.S. citizen. So if you need a fail-safe procedure, you're going to go to the provisional ballots and follow the steps. So the first thing we're going to do when you need to use a provisional ballot is get the provisional ballot bag from your black bag, which contains all the materials we're going to need. The first thing you will do is break the seal and open the bag. Remove all of the contents of the red bag. The first item we have is the provisional ballot booklet, which comes in the red bag, and it has all of the instructions for completing a provisional ballot, as well as sample forms for you to use while you're completing all of your paperwork, reminding you to include your initials on the secrecy envelope and on your ballot. A sign-in sheet, make sure that your voters sign. And we have the Pro 9 forms, which are the instructions for the provisional voter. Once you have all your materials ready, you will start by getting out the secrecy envelope, the sample ballot, and your ballot card. Next, we have our sample ballot, which contains the numbers that the voter will use that corresponds to the ballot. We have the ballot that they will fill out. Please make sure that it is initialed by a Democrat and Republican and includes the precinct number. And we have the secrecy envelope, which also needs to be initialed by a Democrat and a Republican, and this holds the ballot. Next, we will be looking at the envelope, which contains the Pre-4 and the Pro-2 on the back. Once you have all of the materials ready for your voter, you will begin by filling out the Pre-4 form on the envelope, as well as the Pro-2. On the Pre-4, the inspector or judge will be completing the top portion, making sure to list the reason why the provisional ballot is needed. The inspector will be signing as the notary in this case. The voter will be completing the bottom portion of the Pre-4. The voter will also be completing the top portion of the Pro-2. The bottom portion of the Pro-2 is reserved for the Board of Elections to complete, so this portion will be left blank. You will then give the voter the envelope, as well as the sample ballot, the secrecy envelope, which is where the voted card will go, the pink instruction page, and a number 2 pencil. Once the voter returns the materials to you, they will have the ballot card inside the secrecy envelope, which goes into the Pre-4/Pro-2 and sealed. You will collect the number 2 pencil, the sample ballot, and the pink instruction page. You will hold on to these for the next provisional voter. Your envelope will be placed in the red bag where staff knows to look for it. And be sure to mark on your white envelope number 1 that you have used provisional ballots by checking the yes. Thank you for all that you do. It's because of what you do that we are allowed to have clean and efficient elections.
After the polls have closed and all eligible voters in line have voted, then you can begin the tallying process. Locate the infinity envelope. Within this envelope, locate the small tally envelope corresponding to each voting machine. Reminder, do not open these small tally envelopes until the polls are closed. Match each small tally envelope to the corresponding voting machine at the location by the serial number on the envelope. Open the envelope and remove the tally card. Confirm that the serial number on the back of the tally card matches the voting machine as well. Insert the red tally card into the voting machine and enter the security code provided in your election paperwork and hit Done. Select the Tally button. The voting machine will now tally and go into mode Tallied. Locate the zero-proof tally tape printer that was used in the morning, plug the printer in and turn it on. Select the Print Tally button. Print as many copies as your county requires. Remove the tally tapes from the printer and follow county procedures for signing the tapes. Remove the tally card from the machine and place the card and the tally tapes back in the small tally envelope, or follow county procedures if different. This machine can now be closed. Locate the small tally envelope for the next voting machine and repeat the tallying printing steps for each machine at the polling location.
Any ADA equipment you might have at your polling location, probably where you found them, whatever room you found them in. Okay, the movers will come the next day or two to come pick them up. Just leave that there.